Hello, everybody, and welcome to Right Here, Right Now, live Buffalo football talk presented by Forefathers Organics. I'm your host, Alex Brasky, alongside my co-host, Ajay Cybulski, here for the Batavia Daily and Livingston County News. Each week, we'll discuss Buffalo's favorite football team, along with all the comings and goings from Orchard Park, thanks to our friends at Forefathers Organics in Dansville.
Unlock the power of nature with Forefathers Organics, your premium CBD store. We offer the highest quality CBD and hemp products to liberate your mind, body, and soul, helping you live happy and free. Our mission is driven by excellence and transparency, using cutting-edge scientific methods to combat stress and target issues at their source. From potent ingestible CBD to soothing topicals, all our products are USDA certified organic. Discover all natural wellness from farm to table. Visit forefathersorganics.com for more information.
All right, AJ, some Sunday morning football on tap for NFL fans everywhere, and they've been treated to a putrid performance put forth by Aaron Rodgers and the New York Jets. Bills fans everywhere rejoicing over the continued downfall of the veteran quarterback. Your thoughts on that game? Minnesota leads 17-7 at the half. Rodgers with a pick six, another interception, a bunch of overthrows, has really looked poor in this game. They did put together a touchdown drive right before the end of the first half, so salvaging what was a dismal effort from the New York Jets throughout the first half.
Yeah, first off, I want to be first to say, I've said on this show in the preseason that the Jets were going to be a problem for the Bills, and I still could see that being the case because I think the Jets defense always plays well against Josh Allen and the Bills, but they're on the verge here of becoming 2-3 unless they miraculously, Nate Hackett and Rodgers figures it out and Lazard's not dropping footballs and they actually utilize Breece Hall in the run game. But there's just a lot of question marks across that offense, and I think it's a big game for the Bills in terms of this one too, because if you win, the Dolphins and Patriots play, so one of those teams will get to 4 losses. So you could have a really big lead. Both teams could be 2-3. If the Jets lose, they'll be 2-3, and then the winner of the Dolphins Patriots game will be 2-3. So you could be looking, if the Bills go 4-1 here and beat Houston, a nice cushion here to start the season after what some people thought before the season, right, the Bills would be in such a deficit, right, because of the tough schedule and how they were looking at that. So all in all, I think the Jets are a complete disaster right now. They're finally calling penalties on Sauce Gardner. I tweeted out that he might need the boxing gloves like Kyrie Elam did at rookie training camp a couple of years back. So it's just a complete disaster. But I think the Jets are still in this game, but it's looking kind of bleak right now. And the Bills should be happy that their AFC foes are struggling this bad to start the season.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. A lot of talking heads thought this was the season the Bills would relinquish control of the division, but not only did they start the season 3-0, the rest of the division has been crumbling beneath them over the course of the first 4 weeks, and now beginning week 5 with the New York Jets performance against the Minnesota Vikings. But let's move on to the topic at hand, AJ. A huge game for the Bills today at 1 p.m. in Houston. A grudge match. I don't like to call it a revenge game, although I still use that term kind of in sequence with grudge match, but I think it's more of a grudge match for the Bills and Stefon Diggs. There are certainly players in the Bills locker room that were rubbed the wrong way with the way that Stefon Diggs handled himself over the course of his career in Buffalo. Things starting all sunshines and rainbows, but as time went on, I think he wore on a lot of people in that locker room, coaching staff, players alike. Josh Allen and Diggs both downplaying the whole revenge game aspect in the media this week, but I don't think there's much love lost between those two and many other players in the Bills locker room. And it'll be interesting to see the pregame interaction that's expected between Allen and Diggs. I asked Allen about it earlier this week if he would seek that out with the Texans wide receiver, and he said he indeed would, and he hoped the favor was returned. He was sure that it would be. Said that he and Diggs haven't really spoken much or at all for that matter since the trade was made. So I believe this will be their first interaction if it indeed takes place before the game today in Houston.
Yeah, that's what all the eyes are going to be on, unfortunately. That's what the national media wants. I think a lot of fans also want to see that. I'm sure Bills fans right now are scrolling through Twitter, refreshing their feeds to see the interaction. Diggs will probably do his thing and act all happy and then probably go CJ Stroud, like, let's kill these guys, screw Josh Allen, whatever the case may be. But Josh Allen, I don't read too much into things, but the only thing I'm worried about, and before we get too deep into this matchup, is I know Josh Allen wants this game bad. And you could say, and I know that's every week, and he always says in the media, it's 1 week at a time, and that's all that matters. But this game does matter more. Not only did Diggs, after last season, kind of go on Twitter and question Allen's success without him, but he also, just how that relationship kind of ended and how they haven't spoken since the trade and stuff like that. So I'm a little worried that Josh might try and do a little bit too much at times and really try to, make his team win. And sometimes that works out, right? Sometimes you see Josh Allen go full Josh Allen mode and ride the roller coaster, but it works out. That's the only thing. I could see him getting a little too aggressive at points and maybe turning the ball over a bit. But if he can do it in a good way and he goes, good Josh Allen mode and he can bring his team and will his team to victory, which he's done many times, I think this could be a big win and a big statement for the Bills, not only for, themselves and, you beat a former player that was so valuable to your team, but just in terms of the AFC, these are two top contenders in the AFC for the Super Bowl. And I think this should be a showdown. And it was circled on the calendar before the season started. This is two teams that are vying for a Super Bowl. The Texans in a different spot. They're kind of in that rookie contract mode where they can bring in all this talent, while the Bills are kind of in the opposite mode, trying to relinquish or not relinquish, but trying to get over that hump of losing all their key veterans and not having a lot of cap space to work with Josh Allen now's contract fully kicked in. So teams in two different spots, but still both vying for a Super Bowl.
Yeah, both teams enter at 3-1, so both teams looking to keep successful starts alive. The Texans coming off a gritty win over the Jacksonville Jaguars, had to eke that one out at the end, a team that the Bills beat up on in the Jaguars. Texans really struggled with them in that game, while the Bills really struggled against the Baltimore Ravens in all facets, especially throughout that first half. Unable to stop the run, unable to stop Lamar Jackson through the air at times. The offensive line, defensive line performing poorly. Tyler Bass misses a field goal. So just an overall forgettable game for the Bills in Week 4, looking to move into Week 5 and leave it with a much more positive note. Let's dig into your Week 5 preview, AJ, on the dailynewsonline.com. Each week you go through the top storylines, injury reports, broadcast details, and more. It looks like, according to your research, the Bills are a 1.5-point underdog. Has it stood there throughout the weekend? I know that we put these previews and my 5 takes together on Friday, so sometimes things change. But the Bills were a 1.5-point underdog on Friday. The total set at 47.5. Have you been able to check that as I was reading that off?
Yes, I got to agree to the new terms of use on FanDuel here really quick. Okay, I got it up. The Bills are still plus 1.5 underdogs according to FanDuel, plus 104 money line. So still relatively the same. I think the Bills are favored at one point, Alex, during the week, but then the Shakir injury, then the Ed Oliver injury popped up. So then they went back down to being the underdogs just because of those injuries.
I think they may have been favored early last week. I think entering that Sunday night matchup against the Ravens, the line had already changed. I'll try to track down that information as you go through here.
Okay. So, yeah, going back to my pregame story, per se, my Week 5 preview, I just kind of jotted down the 3 storylines for this game. The top storylines, obviously, Diggs playing his former team and what the Bills can do there. There's obviously more to the Texans offense than Stephon Diggs. Nico Collins is excelling in this offense and continuing to kind of be the top dog for them. He has 489 yards this year already through 4 weeks. So he's averaging over 100 yards per game in each week, and he's also grabbing in 10-plus catches a week. So Nico Collins is going to be a very big focal point for them. But, yeah, Diggs playing his former team. The last time Josh Allen played this team, Houston, they blew him out 40-0. And then, obviously, that playoff game in 2019 where that was just a disaster. The Bills had that big lead. So this will be an opportunity for Josh also to seek a little bit of revenge on that game. And then, like you said, you asked Josh during the week about this matchup, and he said, and I quote, hopefully, yeah, I'll say what's up, and hopefully the favor's returned. I'm sure it will be, so we'll see. So that kind of wraps that up. Let's move on to the actual nitty-gritty stuff and in the trenches. Can the Bills stop the run? The Texans enter the Week 5 till averaging 106.8 rushing yards per game, which is below the league average of the Bills, around 120 yards per game, so just above the Texans in terms of rushing. But with the loss of Joe Mixon and an ankle, he is out already for the third straight week. While also running back Dameon Pierce, according to Adam Schefter, will not play today with a hamstring injury. He was considered questionable. So,
and inactives will be announced in about 5 minutes, so we'll have clarification on that shortly.
Correct. So those two are big losses for them. They like to run the ball. So Cam Akers, and I'll try not to botch the name, but Dare Agunbawali.
You definitely botched the name, but it's okay. I would have too.
I botched it. He scored the game-winning touchdown last week against the Jaguars to put them ahead after they snuck out that victory at home. So that's kind of going to be their backfield. I think the Bills will have.
And a quick update from Houston, according to Elena Getzenberg, Bills linebacker Terrell Bernard currently warming up in his uniform pants, looks set to make his return after missing 2 games. Taron Johnson in sneakers, according to Matt Beauvais, alongside Matt Milano. So maybe another week until we see Taron Johnson. But like I said, we'll have clarification in 4 minutes.
Right, which is how you kind of felt right before the week. I feel like you felt that you always, I asked you throughout the week, obviously, because those are 2 important players. Like, what's Taron Johnson's status? What's Bernard's? You really felt confident Bernard would return, and Johnson probably needed another week. So, yeah, that's all with the rushing game. I think the Bills need to stop it, allowing almost nearly 200 yards last week. And then last but not least, before we get to
and Bernard will certainly help in that regard, stopping the run, diagnosing things, getting people set up correctly. So I think that goes right in line with what you were saying.
Right, and Brandon Dean elevated to the practice squad, so we'll see what he can do. He had a solid preseason, so there's some extra juice there. And then also, how will the Bills' offensive line respond, Alex? After the first few weeks, they only allowed 2 sacks to Josh Allen. They go into that Week 4 matchup, and Kyle Van Noy, the AFC Defensive Player of the Month, was kind of a game wrecker. 2 sacks, the strip sack on that trick play by Joe Brady that hopefully never happens again. So the Houston is tied for 4th in the NFL with 14 sacks through 4 weeks. So they're a team that gets to the quarterback. They have Donnell Hunter. They have Will Anderson Jr. Their interior, Mario Edwards Jr. They have some depth there too as well. So will this Bills offensive line be able to regroup and protect Josh Allen? Because that's ultimately going to be the key in this game, will be protecting Josh Allen and also stopping the run on the defensive side.
Early question from Kevin Redzeminski. We got to love that. I think another Polish guy, 3 Polish guys here in the chat on a Sunday morning. Just what a time to be alive right here, right now. But Kevin, who gets the most snaps today between Tyrell Shavers, Zion Logue, or Branson Dean? I think I'm going to go with Logue here. I think they brought him in for a reason. Defensive tackle, I think a position you can plug and play. You saw it last year with Linval Joseph. And with Ed Oliver out, and you mentioned the need to stop the run, Logue is a load. Me spitting bars here, right now. But his size, I think, in the interior can really be a difference maker. And I think you'll see Logue line up inside alongside Daquan Jones on a few key rushing downs, particularly early in the game, trying to set that tone along the line of scrimmage. But who knows? You could see Tyrell Shavers mix in there. Without Khalil Shakir, the Bills' passing game certainly has left a bit to be desired. You haven't seen a lot from Dalton Kincaid. You haven't seen a lot from Curtis Samuel. I'm sure those two in line for increased production this week. But maybe Shavers sneaks his way in with a couple of catches here. But I think in terms of snap count, I would lean Logue here, or perhaps Branson Dean, another player on the interior.
Yeah, I'm going to go Branson Dean because they elevated him. I'm just not sure if Logue's up to speed yet. Just came over this week. So I would probably say because of the Dean elevation, that kind of makes me assume that Logue might be the guy that's a healthy scratch for this week just because they feel more confident with Dean. He's been in the system for the first few weeks. So I think that makes a little bit more sense. But like you mentioned, Shavers, who knows like what he can do because he's been in the last couple of preseasons, Alex, like really valuable, very like important piece of this offense. I know it's preseason, but that still matters. And that's why he's getting elevated today. He has a huge opportunity to step up with Khalil Shakir out. So I could also see him playing a pivotal role. So I think Dean and Shavers we'll see some looks today, but I don't know how much of a significant factor both those players will be, but nonetheless, they'll still probably see some action.
All right. So anything else from your preview or anything you'd like to get to before we thank our sponsor and then move into my 5 takes on this weekend's game?
No, let's thank our sponsor, Forefathers Organics. And also, this injury report's about to come out here in a minute. So we'll probably, on the flip side of this, we'll be able to tell you who's active and who's out.
At Forefathers Organics, their mission is to liberate, educate, and innovate with the highest quality CBD and hemp-derived products for your mind, body, and soul so you can live happy and free. Visit them at 87 Franklin Street in Dansville, online at fourfathersorganics.com, or call them at 585-335-2223 to learn more about the products they offer.
Unlock the power of nature with
Hit the wrong thing. All right, so the Bills have announced their inactives, and Zion Logue, in fact, active for this game, AJ. So 0 for 1 for you on the day.
0 for 1.
You're going to have to take a lap around the office later. I thought after you said that, I thought it was a good point, and I thought I was going to be the one taking the lap. But Zion Logue active. The inactives, Taron Johnson will not play this week. I never thought that was really a possibility. Taylor Rapp, Khalil Shakir, Edifon Ulofoshio, Will Clapp, Ed Oliver, and Austin Johnson. We didn't, I think you may have mentioned him. I didn't really mention him. Austin Johnson, another player on the interior who will not be participating today. But yeah, you have Zion Logue active today. Obviously, Tyrell Shavers in line to get his first game action of the season. So what are your takeaways from the inactives here as we head into Bills Texans?
Yeah, Logue, that was a miss on my part. I forgot that Austin Johnson was dealing with that injury. So that does make sense that Logue is active because there's
inexcusable
because they're out, they're without Oliver and Johnson. So those are two pieces on the defensive line. So now, again, it's going to be the day of rookies, Alex. Dwayne Carter is going to have to step up.
Yes.
Cole Bishop will slot in at safety for Taylor Rapp. And just a quick note on Bishop. I know we haven't seen much of him on the Bills, but when he was drafted, I did some research on him. And in 2023 with Utah, he had 60 tackles, 6.5 tackles for loss, 3 sacks, 2 interceptions, 3 pass breakups, and 1 forced fumble. He ran a 4.45 40, 39-inch vertical, a 9.82 out of 10 RAS score. That means how athletic you are. And he was a captain. So I think with Cole Bishop, I just want to see him not really think as much. I know safeties, there's a lot of processing, but he plays well when he's just moving fast and being aggressive. He's great along the line of scrimmage. I'm interested to see if Bobby Babbage dials up some blitz packages with Bishop and maybe allow him to get to the quarterback and try to get to Stroud if they struggle getting home with 4 early in this game with Von Miller out due to that suspension. So I want to see Cole Bishop fly around. I want to see Dwayne Carter, who had a nice tackle for loss late in that Ravens game when it didn't really matter, but he still broke through the line and brought down the Baltimore running back for a nice tackle for loss. It's going to be the day of the rookies on both sides of the ball. So I'm interested to see how Bishop and Dwayne Carter specifically step up on defense.
Yeah, along with Bishop, DeMar Hamlin starting at the safety position, but Mike Edwards active this week after being inactive last week. So maybe you see a rotation there at the safety position between Hamlin, Bishop, and Edwards. And also Cam Lewis at the nickel cornerback position really struggled, I thought, against the Ravens. Maybe you'd like to see a little bit more Jamarcus Ingram in that spot. I know fans have been clamoring for that. They like him in that dime safety role. But now with Edwards being active, maybe you see Jamarcus Ingram a little bit more in that nickel cornerback role.
Yeah, and I think you could see also, Alex, DeMar Hamlin, Mike Edwards, and Cole Bishop all on the field at the same time. I think that's something they could also throw at you. And on top of, like you said, Cam Lewis struggling last week. I thought Jamarcus Ingram has played well, but please, I do not want to see Nicholas Morrow out there on a 4-3 base defense. That did not work, and the Bills were exposed in that sense when they tried it to try and match up with Baltimore's physicality. They just were outmatched against Baltimore. Not many teams, or if any in the teams in the NFL, can do what the Ravens have done. They're breaking records in franchise history with rushing yards with over 800 through the first 4 weeks. So this Bills team has an opportunity, I think, to stay in that nickel defense. Maybe, like you mentioned, have a heavy rotation at safety. Use all 3 of those guys. Utilize their skill sets. Put them in positions to succeed. That's what Bobby Babbage does great. That's what Sean McDermott does great. And I think this Bills defense could have some success against a pass-happy C.J. Stroud, Houston Texans offense.
All right, so looks like we'll hop into my 5 takes, and that's where I really started with the injuries that the Bills have encountered leading into this game. Injuries have been a story for the Bills all season, but losing Ed Oliver and Khalil Shakir going into this game after Shakir came back with that ankle injury against the Ravens, finished the game, but missed practice all week and then declared out by Sean McDermott. And then Ed Oliver seemingly getting hurt in a practice setting. The second player that's been hurt, key player for that matter, during a practice setting this season for the Bills defense. Matt Milano also was injured during a practice drill. So it's one, and I tweeted this out, it's one thing to lose a player of that significance, but to lose them both during a controlled environment, that's just a really, really tough break for the Bills, and something that I'm sure the athletic training staff and the coaching staff are kicking themselves over. Not that I don't think they could have done anything to avoid it. It's just those are one of those bad breaks throughout the course of a season when you lose a player in practice, especially with Milano and Oliver. I think both were non-contact. I don't think they were at the point of practice where they were going through any contact. So just a tough break to lose those two players. And it's going to be interesting to see what they do along that defensive line. We talked about it with Branson Dean and Zion Logue both being elevated. I think you're going to see a ton of Dwayne Carter, like you mentioned. We talked about the safety position with Taylor Rapp being out. We might see that rotation. Let's dive into wide receiver. What are we going to see here from the Bills passing game without Khalil Shakir? He's been the engine for this offense, he and James Cook, throughout the early course of the season. The Bills really went away from Cook against the Ravens, and that's another one of my 5 takes. I think the Bills really need to stay with that balanced attack here today against the Texans, but more on that later. When it comes to the Bills pass catchers outside of Cook, who are we going to see elevate their game today? I think you need to see more Keon Coleman. You need to see more Curtis Samuel. You need to see more Dalton Kincaid. But I think with so much attention being paid to Kincaid early in this season, I think it might have to come from elsewhere in this game, especially with Shakir being out now. You're going to see even more attention being paid Kincaid's way.
Yeah, Jalen Petrie versus Dalton Kincaid will be an underrated matchup to watch in this game. We'll see how Kincaid fares against one of the top strong safeties in football. And obviously, Derek Stingley Jr., he's going to be tough. Keon Coleman had success last week, right, on those back shoulder throws in the second half. But going up against a Derek Stingley Jr., who you're probably going to have to be lined up against throughout the majority of this game, we'll see how confident Allen is throwing up to those 50-50 balls against one of the best corners in football to a rookie receiver. So, like you mentioned, I think you hit the nail on the head there with who has to step up. There's all these players do, right? It's always been that next man up mentality. It's funny because I had injuries. So I have a bye week for Amon-Ra St. Brown. So he's on bye. This is my fantasy team. Romeo Dobbs, I picked up. He got suspended midweek because he's like, yeah, I don't get the ball, so I'm just going to skip practice. Terrible mentality. Christian Watson is also out for Green Bay. And then I got Quentin Johnson, who's on a bye. So guess who I had to start? Curtis Samuel. So he's projected 6.57 points on Yahoo Sports. But this is going to be the Curtis Samuel game in terms of if the Bills do want
well, you're hoping so anyway.
Yes. And I think the Bills need Curtis Samuel as
right,
well because
sure.
his presence in the slot, his yards after the catch ability, it's just not been utilized a lot. And the gadget plays will work, but you need to implement him as a pass catcher in this offense. And that's really who I'm looking for. That's going to be, I think, the key in this one. I thought he was the X factor, and you did as well. We brought it up multiple times before the season that Curtis Samuel could be an X factor for this offense. I think today is really the moment where he will be that true X factor for what the Bills want to do in the pass catching game.
And quite honestly, I think I've seen too much of Curtis Samuel out of the backfield. I like that element of his game, being able to take those snaps and work into space along the edge. But why don't we get him on the outside and let him actually catch some passes in normal route running situations? It's what he's built his career on. Get him out there, get him in a comfortable situation, and have Joe Brady have a rebound performance today. He is also another person in need of a rebound performance this week. You mentioned the trick play, but overall, I just thought Joe Brady, his first questionable play calling effort of the season, just didn't seem to have any type of structure or rhythm to what he had going on. And like I said, I thought he abandoned the run much too early in that game when James Cook was really one of the players that was a bright spot for the Bills offense early against the Ravens. He was ripping off 7-yard gains more often than not. And then game script kind of got away from the Bills, and that really eliminated the possibility of the running game. But even before that, I thought there were opportunities to continue to get Cook involved, and Brady failed to do so. And he admitted it earlier this week, speaking with the media, that he felt he too went away from Cook too quickly. And this week, Buffalo goes up against the Texans defense that's allowed the 4th fewest passing yards per game this season at 161 yards per game. And without Khalil Shakir, I think Cook becomes increasingly important in this one. Ray Davis, we haven't seen much of early on in this season. Ty Johnson's made some big plays, particularly through the passing game. But I think you got to rely on Cook here early in the game and really set up that balanced attack moving forward throughout this one against the Texans.
Yeah, Dan Orlovsky from ESPN made a great point that you're not going to be able to beat this Texans defense laterally. They're so quick. They're so fast. D'Amico Ryans plays that attack-style defense. They're going to have to start beating this team. If they want to win this game, they're going to have to make some plays over the top, and that's what this Bills offense has kind of lacked so far. As good as they've been, averaging still over 30 points per game through 4 weeks, they have struggled with, beating teams vertically. And when you're playing a Texans defense, that's how you're going to have to win sometimes, to open up that stuff underneath. So I'm interested to see how this Bills offense attacks, Houston. And if they stick to the kind of underneath stuff, where they try and get, a little bit more down the field, 10 to 20 yard passes, try and get Josh Allen in a rhythm early. We'll see how they look in that.
And you mentioned Samuel. I think in that regard, down the field, I think that screams to a Keon Coleman game. You saw a couple of nice catches from him down the field, albeit they followed a big drop down the left sideline. But I think you're going to see Josh Allen test this Texans defense with Keon Coleman in those contested catch situations down the field. I think that is about how they're going to attack this defense. I think we really mentioned it all. And increase in Curtis Samuel production. They're going to try to get Kincaid more involved, but I think you're going to see a lot of defensive attention paid his way. And then Cook, I think, is going to be a key element as well, along with Coleman. Defensively for the Bills, it's going to come down to slowing this passing game. I think that goes without saying. You're without your top two running backs. We didn't mention the Texans inactives, AJ. Let's try to find those and confirm that Pierce is in fact out. I'm sure Adam Schefter. Yes, Dameon Pierce and Joe Mixon. So their top two running backs out in this game. I think they're going to turn to the passing game more than ever, and it's really been a success for them this season. C.J. Stroud having another solid season, and Nico Collins leading the league in receiving. You also have Stephon Diggs on pace for 100 receptions. Tank Dell, another strong receiver, and Dalton Schultz, their tight end. It's going to put a lot of pressure on those linebackers over the middle with Diggs and Schultz running at them. But I think, like I said, it goes without saying, without their top two running backs, you have to slow the roll of this Texans passing game. Easier said than done, especially with the injuries that the Bills are continuing to go through on the defensive side of the ball. But at the same time, they have their top two cornerbacks, Christian Benford and Rasul Douglas, who have been perhaps one of the top duos in the league so far. Christian Benford, I think, is in Defensive Player of the Year discussion, the way that he's been defending opposing receivers. So you do have that going for you, defending a player like Collins, a player like Diggs on the outside. But I think the linebackers and the safeties are going to really be key here with Dalton Schultz and some of the other players that the Texans can throw at you.
Yeah, absolutely. And in the Texans, I think it starts with making them one-dimensional. Like, I think as much as you want to stop the pass game, I think it will start with stopping the run game to make them one-dimensional, because I think that's where the Bills defense really excels, right, was making a team one-dimensional. If you can limit the run to start the game and kind of make the Texans offense throw the ball more, I think while it's a tough ask because, all the weapons they have, like you just mentioned, Tank Dell, Diggs, Dalton Schultz, they have also a couple. John Mechie's an interesting player. Xavier Hutchinson. So they still have a lot of names on that wide receiver depth chart that are talented. I think it's about making the Texans one-dimensional as early as you can, so you can kind of feel comfortable. The Bills excel in that nickel defense when they know the pass is coming, and that's what they're going to have to do today early. Maybe take an early lead. Make the Texans try and play from behind. A slow start will not be good for the Bills here if they start slow, and that goes for every week, but especially against this Texans team that's so explosive. You're looking at, it would be a tough ask for them. And they're a team that you look over their schedule, and they squeaked out a win over the Jaguars. They got demolished by Minnesota on the road, 34-7. They squeaked out an ugly Sunday night game against Chicago, 19-13, and beat the Colts in week 1 by 2 points. So they're not beating teams. They're not blowing teams out by any means. They're finding ways to win these one-score games. All 3 of their wins are by 1 score. So it's not like these Texans are a juggernaut. They're a beatable team even with all the Bills injuries. So I think this Bills team has confidence, and they need to respond after an absolute disgrace last week against the Ravens.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I was just thinking of something, and I lost my train of thought that I was going to pivot to.
Talking about linebackers. We were talking about linebackers. We're talking about the defense needing to stop.
A lot going through my mind, AJ. It's my first game at home this season. I'm thinking about what wings I need to order. I'm thinking about the meal during the Sunday night game. There's a lot on my mind today, and something I was just thinking of seems to have slipped off the tip of my mind. But nonetheless, my last take in my 5 takes on the dailynewsonline.com, not only is this a matchup between 2 of the top teams in the conference, a matchup between 2 of the top quarterbacks. We mentioned Stroud, Allen, 2 of the top players in the league. And that's going to probably lead to a close game in this one. The Bills got blown out last week before they had gone 43 games not losing by more than 6 points. This one could come down to a field goal or perhaps less. And Tyler Bass has been inconsistent, missed another 48-yarder yesterday. Got to see Bass kick some ass this week if he's presented an opportunity to drill a potential big kick down the road in this game against the Texans.
Yeah, they're in a dome. I don't think they'll open it. I know you had the stat they haven't opened it since like 2021 season, and it's about 95 to 100 degrees in Houston today. So I don't think they're going to want to put unless they want to advantage so Bills fans can complain all afternoon that it was too hot in the field and whatnot. But it'll be a closed dome. So Tyler Bass will have no conditions. There's no excuses, right, for Tyler Bass in this game. He's in a dome. He's going to have to make some kicks. Like you said, the Texans, all their 3 wins have been in 1-score games. So it might come down to that. And if it's Tyler Bass's number, he needs a confidence booster and beating the Houston Texans team and knowing what that would mean, not only for, himself, but the Bills team as a whole, moving to 4-1, beating Stephon Diggs and the Houston Texans, the top team in the AFC. It would do a lot for his confidence. And I think as nerve-wracking as it is to think that it could come down to a Tyler Bass field goal, if they execute it and it comes down to it, it'll be a very good sign for moving forward for his confidence and this Bills, confidence in him.
Yes, without a doubt. Bass needs a big kick to boost that confidence, especially with confidence waning, not only amongst the fan base. I think it's waning amongst the coaching staff and the organization as well. You continue to miss these 48-yarders, and then on Sundays, Mondays, and Thursdays, you watch these other kickers just drain these 55-yarders with ease right down the middle. It's a tough look for Tyler Bass. But one more topic I'd like to touch on before we give our predictions here, AJ. The offensive line needs a big bounce-back game. It was one of the top units in the league through 3 weeks. Really struggled last week to contain the Ravens' pass rush. Allen running for his life throughout the game. Connor McGovern sustained a minor injury in that game. Deion Dawkins dealing with a hamstring injury that he was able to work his way back from, and said during the week that the way that you're paid in the NFL, sometimes you just got to play through things. So he could still be facing some lingering effects of that hamstring injury in this game. So a lot of eyes are going to be placed on this Bills offensive line going up against the Texans defensive line that has been one of the top pass rushing units in the league.
Yeah, Will Anderson Jr. and Donnell Hunter. I mean, Donnell Hunter's been doing it for years, right? In Minnesota, he's been a consistent 10-plus sack guy. Will Anderson, Houston moved a lot of pieces to go double dip there in the top of that first round a year ago or 2 years ago now to get Stroud and Will Anderson. They gave up a lot of pieces, and he was just phenomenal at Alabama. He's got such great, tenacity. He's got a great motor, and on top of it, he's a freak athlete and can win in multiple ways. So this Bills offensive line is going to be tasked with a tough Texas defensive front today, and it goes back to to protecting Josh Allen. That's going to be the key, and Allen also, again, not getting too aggressive and trying to stay calm, relax, know the moment, and not force the ball down the field and turn the ball over.
So a grudge match coming up against Stephon Diggs and the Texans and the Buffalo Bills. And like I said, everybody kind of keeping their eyes on a potential pregame interaction between the two. I have not been scrolling social media. Let's see if we've seen that yet. It looks like we may have.
Mike Catalano posted.
Yes, Dan Fates stopping by to say hello, but just kind of running past the media. Didn't really see anything more than that. So I don't think we've seen that yet, a potential interaction between he and Allen. I am now curious if we will see that between the two. I figured we may have seen that already. But we'll keep our eyes on that. And, or actually, yeah, that was Catalana who tweeted that. I had Fates on the retweet. But a lot of eyes are going to be placed on that. It's going to be a lot of the conversation on the broadcast. And you mentioned how the national media has kind of ran with that. I think the local media has really picked up on it this week. I think before this week, we were really trying to keep our eyes away from this Week 5 matchup. But obviously, the fans have it on their minds. The fans want to see the Bills go in there and shut Stephon Diggs down. There is a faction of Bills fans that still have love for Stephon Diggs and wish the Bills didn't get rid of him. But there's also a faction of Bills fans that are happy to see him go and thought his time was wearing thin with the Bills. So it's a very polarizing topic. I think there's going to be plenty of discussion, like I said, throughout the broadcast and on social media throughout the game. I think it would be tough to see Diggs go for 100 yards and a touchdown or more in a Texans victory for Bills fans. But if he gets 300 yards and 4 scores and the Bills win, I don't think it really matters what Diggs does in that situation. I think the Bills fans are just looking for a win over who is now turned into a foe and are looking to move forward to 4-1 in a game where their team enters mighty banged up with a divisional game against the Jets coming up next week. What about that game, AJ?
I was going to say, Jets are 1st and 10 on the Minnesota 16. The Jets are punting it away. Rodgers limped off the field. Jets roughing the punter, so the Jets drive stayed alive. He was heading to the Blue Medical Tent, then ran back onto the field, and now the Jets are in Minnesota's red zone, 2nd and 8 on the Minnesota 14, down 10 with about a minute left in the third. So the Jets are making a push here in the second half, and they could potentially make this a 1-score game here shortly.
Yeah, Bills fans certainly don't want them entering that Week 6 matchup with a head full of steam. But my prediction for this game, give me the Bills to win a slugfest, a shootout of epic proportion, AJ, 42-41. I think with Khalil Shakir sideline, Cook is going to explode for a big game. Kincaid's going to finally surpass 50 yards receiving in a game on the season, and Allen's going to outduel Stroud in a memorable, Week 5 matchup.
Yeah, I got the Houston Texans winning this game. This is the first time I've picked. This is the first time I've picked against the Bills this season, and I feel just with the injuries on the offensive side of the ball,
no faith.
I think this Texans team has done a good job, and I think they're just going to be too physical and too explosive offensively for this Bills defense to handle. I think it's going to be a close game, a tight game. It's going to come down to the end, but I got the Texans winning 24-20 in Houston, the same score as last week that they won at home. So give me the Texans 24, Bills 20. And then again, if the Jets can sweep this one out and make a comeback, both teams could be 3-2 next week on that Monday night showdown. But nonetheless, if the Bills do win, move to 4-1, which would be the best case for Bills fans, while the Jets lose and fall to 2-3, Bills fans will be feeling a lot better come 4:30-ish this afternoon. So we'll see if the Bills get it done, but I got the Texans here this afternoon in Houston, and Diggs gets his revenge.
Before we get out of here, we'd like to thank our sponsor, Forefathers Organics in Dansville.
Unlock the power of nature with Forefathers Organics, your premium CBD store. We offer the highest quality CBD and hemp products to liberate your mind, body, and soul, helping you live happy and free. Our mission is driven by excellence and transparency, using cutting-edge scientific methods to combat stress and target issues at their source. From potent ingestible CBD to soothing topicals, all our products are USDA certified organic. Discover all natural wellness from farm to table. Visit forefathersorganics.com for more information.
All right, AJ, looking forward to the first Bills game of the season in my friendly confines. Any recommendations in terms of food, wing flavors? What do you have on the docket today?
I think my mom is making some sauce. So we're going to go with the pasta, meatballs, and homemade sauce. I mean, you can't beat it. I'm sure I'll probably just make my go-to sandwich, my salami, provolone, mustard sandwich for lunch, and that'll be that. And then write my game story, do our post-game show, hopefully discussing a Bills W, and then mow down on some sauce, enjoy some 425 second half games, and watch a Sunday night game tonight. So it's going to be a good day. It's always a good day when it's October, and the Bills are playing and football's back. So it's a nice Sunday here.
Yeah, a little chill in the air, the smell of pizza and wings wafting throughout Western New York. Bills on the road against the Houston Texans. We have one more comment here from John Robert. I don't know how much it adds here, but yes, Zion Logue, huge dude. That's going to do it for us on the pod. We will see you next time.
Peace out.